Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be replacing an inner tie rod end. And I have a special tool I'll be using to do it. You can find it at O'Reilly's, local Harbor Freight store, and you can rent it or own it. This is the easiest way that I've found to pull the inner tie rod out on a vehicle that it's not accessible to get to with a wrench. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take the wheel off, but you'll want to jack the car up first and use a jack stand. So now that we've done that, go ahead and remove the wheel. Next thing you're going to want to do is to remove the nut on the bottom half of the tie rod end. Next, what you'll do after removing the nut and the cotter pin is these can sometimes be hard to get out. Don't hit the threads. You'll damage them if you need to reuse this. Since this is a brand new inner and outer tie rod end on this side, well, the tie rod end is brand new. The inner needs replaced. Since I already replaced these, what we're going to do, instead of damaging these threads, you'll hit here on the hard spot. It'll break it loose. As you can see, it just kind of popped right out of there. Since this one has just recently been removed, it made it a lot easier. But sometimes you'll have to struggle a little bit. But after you hit it a few times really hard, depending on how seized it is, you can tap right here and it'll pop it up. Okay, now that you got that part done, this part will have a clip right here. For some reason it's not on this one, so this whole thing should pull right out. This rubber boot. There's supposed to be a metal clamp or a zip tie on the back here, and up front right here there should be a clamp or a zip tie. Like I said, this has been missing them, so that's how it is. What we'll go ahead and do next is we're going to spray paint a little bit right here to mark the threads on the inner tie rod end. That way we can realign it as close as possible without an alignment rack. This might need to go to an alignment rack depending on if it's off or not, which this just had an alignment, but I can go and get it realigned, so I'm not worried about it being off too much. But this will help it to where you don't have to go back to the alignment rack necessarily. So we'll get started doing that. Here's another tip on a way you can do this to get it back to proper alignment. You'll count the rotations, that being one rotation and so on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 rotations will get this back to where it's supposed to be on alignment. And what we'll do is we'll take the nut off and you'll see where the spray paint is. We can also do this 30 rotations onto the new shaft and then check to see if it's about the same length in. This is the most efficient way I've found of doing this. Now we will remove the boot. As you can see, this piece right here will have a zip tie. This has a clamp that runs to the rack and pinion. A little metal thing goes in there. It's really simple. If I could show you in here a little bit more in a minute, I will. And then this will go back on before you or after you install the new shaft. But to take this old junky shaft out, I'll get the new tool so I can show you how to use it. This is the tool you can rent from O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Napa, and most part stores will have it. This end has a spot so you can put a 1/2" drive breaker bar, and this end is open, and it has these little notches on the side that can lock over. What you'll do is you'll have to test fit each one of these onto the tie rod end, and then they will sit in here like this. This will then slide onto the shaft, and then you use it to loosen. So we'll go ahead and test and see which ones fit, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I found the one that fits. It's a 1 3/8. See how it fits in here? Then you lock it so it doesn't move. You're going to have to put this on the inside of the inner tie rod end first. Then you'll have to shove this over it and latch it on with it on the car. So we'll go ahead and get to it. Okay, now that we got it latched on, we'll go ahead and use our 1/2" drive breaker bar, and we'll turn it to loosen. Then we will take the tool out. And we'll take the tool out, remove the old one. You got to make sure to include this little plastic piece. On this model of car, it has a plastic piece. Don't forget this. So what we're going to go ahead and do is there's a little bit of primer spray paint marks here still. We're going to see if we can get this marked on the new shaft to make sure that they're the same length and do all that good stuff. Okay, we'll go ahead and get the new one. If you have some thread lock, I'd put some on here just so it doesn't loosen up, because this is a steering component. You don't want this loosening up. We'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so now I'm going to hand threaden this on, hand tighten it until I can't no more, then we'll use the tool. So now we'll go ahead and put this tool back on. Now we'll go ahead and tighten it back down really tight with the breaker bar. Do not go lightly on tightening. Tighten it as hard as you can. I'm sure there's a torque spec for this, but my torque spec is really tight. Really tight. You do not want this part loosening up as you drive. I had put thread lock on it, which is the red thread lock, and tightened it really tight, so this shall be safe. Next, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get this boot back on properly. So if you don't have the little metal clips that go around here, just use a really good zip tie and tighten the crap out of it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is slide it back on and look at exactly where it needs to go. You will need to remove the nut first. Now do not forget the zip tie on both the front and rear. And once you do that, you're good. Now we will install the outer tie rod in using the nut that they provided, and we'll put it on the same amount of rotations as it came off. And we'll go ahead and put it back in. We will tighten the nut back up. Then we will install the castle nut. The reason they call it a castle nut, looks like a castle. Put the castle nut back on the bottom, tighten it down, put the cotter pin back in, and we're done. Go ahead and get to it. Now that it's all done, you can test and see there's no more shaking in the steering. So that concludes that. You'll put the wheel back on, tighten the lug nuts down to spec, and take a jack stand and jack out, and you're done. I recommend getting an alignment afterwards just to be safe. That way you know it's done right. Most alignment shops cost anywhere from $45 to do a front end alignment to $80 to $100. So roughly in that area to do an alignment, but it's well worth it. It's your safety we're talking about here. It's not something to be played lightly with. So if you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Like, subscribe, share if you haven't. And let me know what you guys think. Hope this video helps someone.